Hello everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending upon when you are listening to this audio clip. Yesterday we discussed about the syllabus of income tax with a weightage of 60 marks within the overall paper of taxation of 100 marks. I hope you would have understood the overall scope of income tax and what are the key skills that we need to develop in order to get a grip on this particular subject and what strategies should be adopted, what kind of thought process is required while approaching this particular paper taxation. That particular audio clip you can listen to again and again. I would actually suggest even after we come back to face-to-face classes, the syllabus of taxation and strategy related to taxation, you can listen to that periodically, maybe once in a month like that, to reassure yourselves that you are in the right track and what is happening and how you are able to develop the skills which are required for this subject of taxation. But after that, now let us enter into the real subject, the actual subject of income tax. And as you are aware, the starter part comes with some of the basic concepts and definitions. Some basic concepts including understanding the terminology related to taxation and tax laws in general is very important for a correct understanding of this subject in future. Definitions, of course, will be also important from a theoretical point of view. If a theory question is asked directly, you just need to reproduce the definition which is mentioned in the Act, though the chances are less, but still, there were cases earlier when 2 to 3 marks, 3 questions were asked, wherein definitions have to be written in the examination. But keeping that apart, the definitions have to be understood very well, particularly once again, because they will be useful in understanding the provisions of the law itself. And that is the reason any act, for that matter, not only Income Tax Act, any act in general in India starts with Section 1, which is about the name of the act and what is the applicability of the act, and particularly what is the date of commencement of the act. Generally, Section 1 of any act, including Income Tax Act, is about short title and commencement. Of course, this act, what we are going to learn is Income Tax Act 1961, which is effective from 1st of April 1962. And it is applicable to the whole of India, entire India, including Jammu and Kashmir, not in 2019. Even from 1962, it was applicable for entire India, including Jammu and Kashmir. So, Article 370 or abrogation of Article 370 has nothing to do with Income Tax Act particularly. So, this act has always been applicable for the entire country since its inception. Section 2 in any act, including Income Tax Act, will be about the definitions. We'll come to the definitions part later. But before even discussing and understanding the definitions mentioned in the Income Tax Act, we need to focus on some of the basic concepts and terminology that is used in general also and particularly in the Income Tax Act also. Already we have observed in the earlier session some of the words. For example, what is the difference between a law and an act that we observed in the earlier discussion. Law is a broader term, act is only a part of the law. So, any particular law may contain numerous acts or some other components as it will be required. That is the terminology. If we understand it clearly, we will never use it loosely. So, law and act are not one and the same. We know it now. Act is a subset of law. Law is a word which is bigger than act. Like that, there will be many other terms which we use. We need to understand the basic meaning of them and the context in which we apply those terms. Now, today I have sent some of the things related to the basic concepts of taxation. While listening to this audio clip, you can refer to them also. Ideally, the better technique will be to read them before listening to the audio lecture, also referring to it while listening to the audio lecture, simultaneously going through the required material, and once the audio lecture is finished, once again going through the contents and reiterating whether we have understood whatever has been discussed in the audio lecture. So a 3-course meal once again would be a better approach for these type of audio lectures, wherein the effectiveness of the learning can be ensured with these 3 steps. That is the reason why I am sending the material, the contents to be studied beforehand. So even before I send the audio lecture, I hope and I suggest that every one of you already would have gone through the contents of the material that has already been sent to you. So now let us jump to the basic concepts part. Now you can open the particular image which was sent to you, which contains the heading of basic concepts and definitions, in which there was a clear-cut distinction between tax, duty and cess. Also, what is the difference between direct taxes and indirect taxes has been given in that particular image. So open that image, and now ideally you should read and understand along with me. First of all, what is a tax? Of course, we all use this term. Everybody knows this. Since childhood, tax is not an unknown term. Definitely it is a known term. We use it quite frequently. And now, since we have them in syllabus, we know particularly income tax and goods and services tax. The words used in both the cases, if you observe, is that word tax. Income tax, goods and services tax. Both are taxes. Then a question comes, what is tax? Then what is duty? Then what is cess? Are all the same? Are there any commonalities or are there any differences? That distinction we need to understand very clearly. Now, we know some of the examples for taxes. Let us extend the basket. We have income tax. We have goods and services tax. You would have heard the word municipal tax, property tax, entertainment tax, like this. Value added tax, that is VAT. Earlier, you would have heard this word sales tax, service tax. All these words, if you observe, all of them are using tax. But at the same time, there are some other amounts levied by the government where we don't call it a tax, we rather call it a duty. That is, customs duty, excise duty, stamp duty, like this. Ultimately, money has to go from us to government. There is no difference in that. But the question still remains whether tax and duty are same. Answer is no. Tax, duty, cess, all the 3 are different and they are used in different contexts. Usually, if you observe tax or duty or cess, one common point in all of them. Now you can go to the particular material and read it. If you observe, the first line in all the 3 is same. What is tax, what is duty and what is cess? Tax is a compulsory payment to the government without any proportionate return. Duty is also a compulsory payment to the government without any proportionate return. Cess is also a compulsory payment to the government without any proportionate return. That means the basic concept of all the 3 is similar but not same. What is the similarity between each of them? All of them are compulsory payment to the governments without any proportionate return. If anybody is liable to pay the tax, that person has to pay the tax compulsorily, means mandatorily. So that is the first point. Somebody cannot say, even though he is liable to pay tax under any of the particular acts, somebody cannot say, I don't have money to pay the tax. You cannot say that. You have to pay. It is compulsory. There is no relaxation unless once again granted by the act to anybody from paying the tax if it is supposed to be paid by the person according to the act, any act. So all the 3 are compulsory payments to the governments. Then a question comes, sir, everybody should pay. I am not paying income tax. You may say, you are not required to pay income tax according to the Income Tax Act because you don't have income. If you have income, you will also be required to pay the income tax according to the Income Tax Act. So compulsion is not about everybody. You should not understand compulsory payment as everybody should pay. That is a very important aspect in understanding the subject of taxation. We should interpret the words which are given in the law or defined in the law in the sense in which the law intends it, not in the sense that we understand. Same word can have different meanings. Same word can be used in different contexts. And the same word can be interpreted by different people in different ways. That is inevitable. But at the same time, we cannot draw wrong conclusions from the words which are used. For example, if somebody says, sir, because the definition of tax, cess, duty includes the word compulsory payment, I interpret it like this. Somebody born just now, some baby, he or she also has to pay tax because it is compulsory. No, not in that sense. Compulsory does not mean everybody. The law never said, or the definitions never said, everybody should pay tax, everybody should pay duty, everybody should pay cess. That was never the intention. Compulsory when it is required by the respective act. If the law says that a person is liable to pay tax, duty or cess, then only he is liable to pay. If the law says somebody is not liable to pay, then they are not liable to pay. Simple point. So once again, one of the important aspects in understanding the taxation subject is we should not be over smart in understanding and interpreting. Naturally, sometimes the brain will give us different types of thoughts. That is where we have to ask ourselves, in fact, question ourselves and check, is that a correct thought? Compulsory, can we say, is equivalent to everybody? Then again we have to question ourselves, no, it could be not possible. Why? Because when we say everybody, even every person, whether they have income or not, whether they have any liability to pay any tax or not, they would have to pay, which is illogical. No law will tell that. So definitely compulsory does not mean everybody. Compulsory means only when it is mandated by the law for a person to pay the tax, duty or cess, then only they have to pay. Simple. That's what compulsory means. Anyway, that is one thing which is common in all the three words, tax, duty and cess. Another common thing in the same line is without any proportionate return. Without any proportionate return means somebody paying whether tax, duty or cess cannot expect any benefit from the government in accordance with the tax that they have paid. Of course, we see and listen many times, which is actually increasing nowadays, little bit illogical, sometimes even very, I would say, awkward. You would have heard this in television debates and even some of the social media posts. Taxpayers' money, government is spending taxpayers' money. Somebody in the universities are using our taxpayers' money. Government is distributing taxpayers' money to the poor. Government is putting money in the bank accounts, or it is giving pensions to the old people. Freebies is the word that we use always, a lot of times. Freebies are being given, that free, this free. These are all done by the government. From where? From the taxpayers' money. So what the general argument goes is, taxpayers have a right to ask the government whether to spend all these amounts towards a particular cause or not. Of course, in a democracy, everybody has a right to question the government about what could be the reason behind spending this money for a particular cause. But one point we have to be very clear. It is the government and government alone which has the power to decide how to spend the money that is collected in the form of taxes and duties. Only government has that power. Whatever we cry, whatever we shout, my money, my taxpayers' money is being distributed, taxpayers' money is being wasted, all these things will be just shouts in the dark. But reality is, government has the ultimate power to decide how to spend this taxpayers' money that it has collected. Why I am telling all this is because of the word without proportionate return. So the point once again comes. Imagine there are three people in the country. One person is a rich person like Ambani. Second person, not the Anil guy, other guy, Mukesh. Rich Ambani, not the bankrupt or about to be bankrupt Ambani. So one person is a rich person very rich, ultra rich person. Second person is like a middle class person who has reasonable income. The first guy has income in crores, let us say. Second guy has income in lakhs, let us say. And the third guy doesn't have much of income. He has income in thousands only, and he is generally considered to be a poor guy in the society. Just for example, let us take 3 layers of income in the society. There will be hundreds of them actually. But only for understanding purposes, let us take 3 people, A, B, C. A is Ambani, B is just a middle class guy, a banker, let us say, a bank employee, and C is a common man who is just a very poor guy. Ambani pays crores of rupees of income tax, and the bank employee who is a middle class guy pays few thousands of income tax because of the lakhs of income that he receives. And the third guy, C, never pays any income tax because he doesn't have taxable income. Now, once again imagine all the 3 people are going for a morning walk in a park. Can the Ambani say he should have a separate track for the morning walk because he is paying higher amount of tax? Or can the banker say he will not let the C, common man, to also be part of the walking track just because C never paid any tax, only B has paid tax? Can he say that? Can they say that? The answer is absolutely no. Once you pay the tax, once you pay the duty or the cess, actually according to these definitions, you just have to forget about them. Don't expect any proportionate return. Ambani going on the road, let us say, of course he generally doesn't go on the road, maybe he goes more by chartered flights and helicopters. Just for example, let us say he's traveling from Bombay to Pune. Ambani, A, he uses the same road. B, uses the same road. Maybe the car is different. Ambani might go in a luxury car with worth crores. B might go in a little bit lesser costly car in lakhs. C might go in bus from Bombay to Pune. But the point is, all the 3 are using the same road. There is no better return that Ambani gets over and above B. There is no better return that B gets over and above C just because they are paying any higher amount of tax than the people below them. So the point to be understood, very important aspect, is whether it is tax, duty or cess, all of them are with no proportionate return. There will be a return. When we are paying tax, we are getting something from the government, whether we observe it or not. Imagine we are feeling safe within the country. How is it possible? Without our defense forces relentlessly guarding us, and our defense forces are to be paid by the central government. How they can pay without collecting tax? So whatever the tax money people pay will be used by the government to pay for the salaries of the defense forces so that we can feel safe and secure. We may not identify. Let us say I paid few thousands of rupees of tax. Somebody else paid little bit more tax. That does not mean the person who paid more tax is more secure than me. That is where the proportionate return concept will vanish. All the people in the country, whoever is liable to pay the tax, will pay them, and they pay to government. It's like a common pool. Imagine if you remember your school days, probably you would have collected some voluntary donations. Let us say your friends group wanted to go for a picnic or wanted to conduct a party. So what you will do? You will collect say 100 rupees from each of them. For example, if there is a group of 10 friends, you would have collected 1000 rupees, and then you use that 1000 rupees for common purposes, and then if at all any money is remaining, that can be given back or that can be spent on the same group of people for different purposes. That is how the government works also. But just imagine if the 10 people are paying 100 rupees each and you are going to a restaurant, in that 1 or 2 of them are eating too much. Can the others complain, I also paid 100 rupees, he also paid 100 rupees, how can he eat more? Do we do that? No, because we are friends. Same is the logic here. We are the citizens of the same country and we are talking about our fellow Indians, not somebody. So my point is, this government of taxpayers, which is increasing nowadays, is not a welcome sign. We should understand that's what tax is. You are not doing any favor by paying tax. We are not doing any special benefit to the non-taxpayers by paying tax. That is our duty. That's what the taxpayers ideally should understand. But of course, psychologically, it so happens, most of the people will think that when they pay tax, their rights are bigger than those, higher than those, better than those who don't pay tax, which is not a morally correct thing also. Even technically also, it doesn't make any sense. So point once again to be noted is, all of them, tax, duty, cess, are compulsory payments to the government. Compulsory does not mean everybody. Compulsory means only those who are mandated by the law have to pay this tax, duty and cess. But don't expect any proportionate return. No proportionate return can be expected. That is the common point between all the three, tax, duty and cess. Now, what is the difference? Once we know the common point, as far as the basic nature of tax, duty and cess is concerned, that is same. It is a compulsory payment to the government without any proportionate return. All of them are same. Then why are we telling these three terms are not equal? These three terms are not same. Are there any differences? Yes, there are differences. Subtle differences are there. And those subtle differences will have to be identified by us as well. In general, if you just observe, tax is a word which is used when the person who is paying the tax is paying so when he had already received a benefit, some kind of benefit, whatever it could be. For example, if somebody is paying income tax, why is he paying income tax? Because he has income. Income is a benefit for him. Income is something which is good news for him, not a bad news for him. He got income. It's like you have income. So you are sharing some of your income with the government. So when anybody has to pay income tax or GST or any tax for that matter, they are required to do so when they have a benefit. Whereas when we talk about duty, don't use this word duty, which is the word responsibility, duty and responsibility. Not that. This is a different word, though it might have come from similar nomenclature. This duty is a different word. Customs duty, excise duty, stamp duty. These are the places where we use the word duty. Of course, it is duty of the people to pay. That is why it is duty, somebody will say. But that will not hold good because it is a duty of the people to pay tax also. We are not calling it duty, we are calling it tax. It is a duty of the people to pay cess also. We are not calling it duty, we are calling it cess. So don't bring out your own definitions of what is duty. Duty is a name only, that's all. Not in the word, not in the sense that it is the responsibility. All the three, tax, duty, cess, are responsibilities of the people. If they are supposed to pay, they have to pay without expecting any proportionate return. So that part is common already. Now the point of what is the duty comes. Tax is something which somebody has to pay when they got some benefit. Duty is something which somebody has to pay when they don't have any benefit, probably they have a cost already. On that, over and above that, duty has to be paid. Now, just for understanding purposes, let us take some examples. Let me warn you in advance. Some people take the examples too literally and forget the original content. That should not be done. Examples are examples. Why they are taken? Only to understand the original content. So don't take the examples too seriously. Just use them for the purpose of better understanding of the original content. Normally, when you see, let us say, there is a person who is working in a company, who is working as assistant manager. He got a promotion as manager. What his friends will do? Immediately, all his friends will surround him and ask him party, because that person has got a benefit. He got a promotion. Might be in future he'll have more income, better position, maybe a chamber or something like that. Whatever it is, definitely that is a benefit that our hero has received. So all his friends will ask for party, means he has to spend for that party. And why is he spending on that party? Because he wants to share his happiness with his friends. So he'll spend some money on the party before even receiving the real benefits. Actual increment and actual money from the promotion comes from next month. But party people will ask immediately. Forget about it. Still, at least there is a benefit and there is a happiness which he is sharing with his friends. Take another example. Another person, this is common, you would have observed also. Somebody purchased a bike or somebody purchased a car. Again friends will come, party. Arre Baba, already I have spent money on the purchase of bike. I didn't receive any benefit. I have incurred already huge cost. And you are asking me to pay or spend more money by giving you party. Yes sir, I am asking you. That's what people say. We cannot say no. Even then, the person who has purchased the bike or car will shred more amount of money over and above what he has already spent in order to satisfy the friend's request asking for party while purchasing the bike or car. Now related to our discussion of tax and duty. In the first example, what the person who got promotion spent is in the nature of tax because he got a benefit and he shared the happiness of that benefit with his friends. In the second case, though he has not received any benefit, he has actually spent some money in the form of purchasing bike or car, still he had to spend more money over and above that. That is what is duty. Now, if income is earned, you have to pay income tax. If you sold some goods, you have earned some revenue. There is a huge difference between revenue and income. Revenue is a gross concept, income is a net concept. We'll come to that later. In your accounting terms, revenue means sales, income means profit. Both are not same. And GST is calculated on what? Revenue, sales, not on profit. Income tax is calculated on profit. But both are gains, right? Both are definitely benefits. When somebody sold certain items, he received some cash, he received money, or he will receive money in future. That is definitely a benefit. So because he received a benefit, government is asking him, Baba, give me a share of your benefit. Because somebody has received a benefit in the form of profit, government is asking him, share your happiness with me, share your income with me. Only difference between friend and government is, friends might ask us friendly, government might not ask us friendly, because these are all compulsory payments. Government will not ask us, request us, please, party. Like that it will not ask. It will take from us. It has that power. So we will be in an obligation to give party to government, whereas it is only our choice in the case of friends whether should we really give party or not. That difference is there. Giving party is not compulsory, but paying tax or paying duty or cess is compulsory. That difference is there. But the situation is same. You are happy, government is asking a share in that. You incurred some expenditure, government is asking a share in that. So, first case it is calling tax, second case it is calling duty. So, tax, for example, when we talk about income tax or GST, your happiness is shared with government by paying some amount of money to it. Property tax. You have a property, very good thing. Excellent. A lot of people in the country and world do not have property, but you have property, no? Fantastic. You are the owner of the property. So pay tax. Share your happiness with me. Government says. Municipality will ask that. Property tax. So different taxes are generally collected by way of a portion of the benefit that the person is receiving is paid to the government. So that is what is tax, which is generally levied on a benefit. Then the question comes, what is duty? Again, refer to the party when you purchase a bike or car situation. Means you already incurred cost, over and above that you have to pay duty. For example, customs duty. When somebody wants to import certain commodities, you already are incurring cost. When you are importing means what you are purchasing. You are purchasing means you are incurring cost. You are incurring money. You have an outflow there, not an inflow. You don't have a benefit there. But still, the government says, before that commodity enters into our country, Baba, you have to pay customs duty. Pay us. Some of you may say, why? The answer is same. Why should you give party when you buy a bike? Why should you give a party when you buy any of the properties? Whereas you are already incurring a cost, still you are giving a party, incurring expenditure over and above that cost. If there is answer for that why, that is the same answer for this way also. People do all these functions, Graha Pravesham and all that. Already they would have incurred lakhs and lakhs of rupees in construction of the house. Already that person, whoever has constructed the house, will be in debt. Still, it becomes a social obligation for them to conduct a Graha Pravesham party, a big event, function, all people coming, eating, additional cost. Few more thousands, few more lakhs on this event. That is a custom, that is customary, and it becomes duty of the people. It's a social obligation. In that case, some people may say, I don't care, I don't want to do Graha Pravesham. No problem. At the maximum, his relatives will tell he is a Sanki guy. But that is not the case with government. Somebody cannot say, I will not pay duty. You have to pay. There is no other option. If you don't pay, according to the law, you will face consequences. That is a big difference. So, tax is something that has to be paid on a benefit, whatever that benefit may be in general. Duty is something which has to be paid on a cost. Excise duty has to be paid, for example, on the cost of manufacturing, though it is not there now since it is abolished because of introduction of GST. Same way, stamp duty. Stamp duty you would have heard, this can be easily understood. When stamp duty has to be paid? Stamp duty has to be paid when you purchase a property. Same logic, no? You are already purchasing a property, lakhs of rupees, crores of rupees you are spending on the purchase of property. Over and above that, you have to pay stamp duty to the government. You cannot say why. Government is telling you have to pay, means you have to pay. That stamp duty goes to state government. Customs duty, excise duty go to central government. Stamp duty goes to state government. Property taxes go to the local authorities. So that is a different discussion. We have 3 layered governments in India, and there are different types of taxes and duties that each of these governments levy. Though we don't have in syllabus all of them, we will only cover the central acts, central laws. That is why in syllabus what we have is only income tax and GST. But still, the terminology to be understood in a very correct sense, tax and duty are not same. But what is similarity between them? Yes, both are compulsory payments and both will not give us any proportionate return. And there is one more common point in between these two. Actually, very subtle difference is there between tax and duty, not a big difference. Most of them are common things only. Only difference is tax is a sharing of our happiness or benefit with the government, and duty is a sharing of or giving additional amount to the government already after we are incurring certain cost by importing goods, by manufacturing the goods, by purchasing some property. Already you have incurred cost, over and above that you have to pay to government. And if you observe the examples clearly, it will be very easy to understand what is the difference between tax and duty. But all the remaining things are same. Definition is same. What is tax, what is duty, both are same. And then the other question comes, when the government is collecting the tax and duty, can it spend as it wishes? As it wishes. Of course, the answer is yes. That's where you can refer back to the material. The government is free to utilize the amount of tax as per its choice. Government is free to utilize it as per its choice. Whereas duty also same. The amount collected by way of duty can be utilized by the government in its various purposes. Means government is free to utilize the amount collected by way of either tax or duty for the purposes as it wishes. Government wants to spend more on defense. Its choice. Government wants to spend more on education or health of its citizens. Its choice. Government wants to spend more on infrastructure. Its choice. And that is what we call union budget. Central government and state governments annually tell us how are they going to collect the taxes, how much of the taxes they are going to collect from public, and how are they going to spend that. But the question is, they only have to tell us what they are going to do. But who has the power to decide where the money to be spent? Absolutely with the government. Government has the ultimate power, supreme power, to spend the money which it has collected in the form of tax and duty for the purposes it wishes. That is the point to understand. We may comment on that. We may say, no, that should have been spent like this. This should have been spent like this. Oh, there will be a lot of analysts who will write articles in newspapers also like me. They will tell all the 100 things. Yes, that is our right in a democracy to express our opinion. But whose right it is to take a decision? Ultimately, government. So government is free to spend the money it collects in the form of tax or duty as it wishes in different purposes. So that is common between tax and duty. And we already know the difference, the subtle difference between tax and duty. Tax is generally levied, and that is generally based on a revenue or an inflow, something which is a benefit. Let us not specifically focus on the words here. Let us understand the concept here. Tax is something that is based on a benefit, whereas duty is something which is generally based on a cost. So that is the difference between these two. Other than this difference, almost both are same. Both are compulsory payments, both are not having any proportionate return, and both can be utilized by the government as per its choice. Now the word cess comes into picture. What is the speciality of cess? Of course, it is also the same thing. It is also a compulsory payment. People will have to pay to government, whoever is liable to pay, and government definitely will not give us, or not necessarily obliged to give us any proportionate return from that. Proportionate return might not come. But the only difference once again between tax, duty and cess is tax and duty on one part, cess on the other part. Just now as we observed, the tax and duty government can spend according to its choice. Cess the government cannot spend according to its choice. Means the cess has to be spent for the purposes for which it is collected. It is a very specific head for which a cess will be collected. So look at the definition or explanation of what is a cess. Of course, the first line is same. Cess is also a compulsory payment to the government without any proportionate return. That is the same. But what is the different thing here? Amount collected by way of cess can be utilized by the government only for the purposes in the name of which it is collected. So cess is not something very generic in nature. It is a very specific thing in nature. So the examples of cess can be health and education cess, which we will be discussing later, which is levied over and above the income tax. Health and education cess, which is collected by the government, and where the government can utilize that. Can the health and education cess collected by the government be utilized for the purpose of, say, buying Rafale jets? Not possible. You cannot. Government cannot. Government is not allowed to do that. That is the nature of cess. The cess that is collected in the form of health and education cess has to be spent in the sectors of health and education only. Tax and duty you can spend according to whatever the choice of the government. Cess cannot be spent according to the choice of government. It has to be spent for the purpose for which it is collected. For example, health and education cess has to be spent by the government. It is the government's obligation to spend in the sectors of health and education. So definitely it cannot be utilized for any other purposes. And the government is not free to utilize the amount of cess as per its choice. That is the difference between tax, duty and cess. So common points are there between these terms. Differences are also there between these two, among these three terms. Tax and duty on one part, cess on the other side. Tax and duty can be utilized by the government according to its choice, whereas the cess cannot be utilized by the government according to its choice. It has to be spent for the purposes in the name of which it is collected. Now most of those cesses are not there. Earlier when the service tax was there used to be variety cesses that the central government used to impose. We had earlier, not now, Swachh Bharat cess, as the name indicates, where it has to be spent only for Swachh Bharat. Earlier there was Krishi Kalyan cess, means it has to be spent for the welfare of farmers only. Like that, Garib Kalyan cess, many types of cesses can be collected by the government. Now those are all not there. Only cess that is remaining at the central government level, particularly for income tax purposes, is health and education cess. For the purpose of health or education, government can spend. And we are talking about central government here. The words tax, duty and cess have no limitations. These are conceptual things that we understood. Taxes can be levied, duties can be levied, cesses can be levied by any government, central government, state government or local authorities. But because we are learning only the things which are at a national level, we will focus mostly our examples on the central government level things. That is why when we say tax, we talk about income tax and GST. When we say duty, we talk about customs duty. When we say cess, we talk about health and education cess. And these are only examples, by the way. And there are many types of taxes, duties and cesses that different types of governments will collect from the public. So this is the understanding of three important terms: tax, duty and cess. Though it is not directly relevant, just for understanding and general knowledge purposes, there is also a subtle difference between tax and duty and cess. Again, tax, duty on one side, cess on the other side. Why this is important is, a lot of people don't know this and they think, what is the difference, Baba? End of the day we are paying money, no? What is the difference? If I pay duty to government, tax to government, cess to government, there is no difference. Ultimately I am only paying, no? For example, if you see this amount that you pay on the petrol or diesel, whenever you purchase petrol or diesel, you have to pay some cess to the central government. But at the same time, there is a central excise duty on the petrol and diesel, which is again collected by central government. There is VAT on the petrol and diesel, which is collected by state governments, respective state governments, wherever you buy the petrol and diesel. So the point is, multiple taxes are collected, multiple types of amounts are collected from public when a person purchases petrol or diesel. When you go to a petrol bunk and ask for a price of the petrol, he will tell the amount. But you don't know what is the component of taxes in that, what is the component of cess in that. Within that, how much is coming to central government, how much is coming to the state government. All these things a common man will not know. Not necessary to know also. But at least at a broader level, we should have a clear-cut idea about what is the difference between this excise duty, which is a duty, and cess that the central government is levying. Both monies are going to central government. Then why the central government is levying in two different names? Why should there be an excise duty on petrol also? Why there should be a cess on petrol also? Money is ultimately coming to central government only, no? Why should they call it with different names? One point we understood already. For example, if this cess is collected in the form of road cess, means the government, central government has to spend it for the purpose of building up national highways and Pradhan Mantri Gramin Sadak Yojana, etc., etc. Means it has to be spent for construction of roads, because the name of the cess itself is road cess. It has to be spent for that. That is one thing. It's a practically different story that many of the governments since decades are collecting cesses, but they are not really spending for that purposes. Comptroller and Auditor General of India every year says this much money is pending, not spent. Like in 2 years back, around 70,000 crores of money was still there in the health and education cess, which was collected by government but not spent. So it's all different practical situations. Let us not go into that. But ideally what should happen, let us understand. Ideally the government should spend the money whatever it has collected in the form of cess for the purpose for which it has collected. Means health and education cess has to be spent in that sector. Road cess has to be spent for construction of roads. That is what we understood so far. But there is a twist in the story now. It is not the only difference between tax duty and cess. Tax and duties, particularly this is coming in relation to the central government. When the central government collects income tax or excise duty or customs duty, a share of that taxes and duties that central government collects will go to state governments. Approximately, not necessarily the same amount, put together all of the states put together, approximately nowadays 40% of the taxes and duties that the central government collects will be redistributed to the states. Of course, it is a different story how much each state will get. That depends upon the Finance Commission recommendations. Again, we don't have to go into those constitutional requirements. But we should have an idea that tax duty collected by central government must be shared with state governments. Again, we hear this lot of times. We are giving this much to this state. We listen to this from the central government officials and sometimes even ministers. That is very unfortunate that the central government level people are talking in this tone, telling that we are giving this much to the states. Baba, you are not giving any much to the states. It is your responsibility to give. If the person as a citizen says that I am giving tax to the government in the same tone, will you accept that? No. So, it is the duty of the person or a citizen to pay tax to the government, and it is the duty of central government to pay a portion of the taxes that it has collected to the state governments. As a citizen, if somebody is paying tax to the government, he is not doing any ihsan on the government. Same way, central government distributing taxes and duties to the state government is not doing any ihsan, it is not doing any favor to the state governments. It is their constitutional responsibility. That is the point everybody, citizens should understand particularly. Then, now the twist comes. Tax and duties central government should share with the state governments? Yes, it should. There is no option. Should it share a portion of cess also with the state governments? Answer is no. It need not. That is why central government intelligently, if you call it in a positive way, cunningly, if you want to call it in a negative way, tries to focus on cesses more than taxes and duties. Of course, taxes and duties it will collect many amounts. But if any new thing has to be collected, general preference of central government will be to increase the cess rather than tax. For the person who is paying, the taxpayer, it doesn't make any difference. Ultimately, what he is paying is money which is going out of his pocket. He doesn't care whether it is a tax, duty, cess, he doesn't care. But does it matter to the government? Yes, it matters. If the central government collects, let us say, excise duty on the diesel, it has to share 40% of that at least now with the state governments. But if it collects a road cess in the name of cess on diesel or petrol, it will not, or it is not in an obligation to share 1 rupee also with the state governments. It can use it entirely according to its discretion at national level. So that is another difference between tax duty on one side and cess on the other side. We are not going into the debate of central government versus state government relationships, federalism, politics of central government and state government, conflicts between central government and state government, because we are not doing a course on politics. But at the same time, when we talk about the law, legal things, statutes, acts, we have to understand the basic structure of our political systems, basic structure of how the overall system is designed in our country, that knowledge, that understanding is very much required, without which we will just go with the law, not understanding the real effect of the law. That is the reason we try to understand the minute differences between tax, duty and cess. Commonalities between them are there, differences are also there among them. So what are the commonalities? What are the differences? We understood, I hope. Just to summarize all the entire discussion in a nutshell, tax, duty, cess, all the three are compulsory payments to be made by those who are supposed to pay to the government. Compulsory payments to the government without any proportionate return. Tax and duty government can spend according to its choice. Cess government cannot spend it according to its choice. It has to spend for the specific purpose for which it is collected. Tax and duty, central government has to share, must share with the state governments. But cess, whatever the central government collects, need not be shared with state governments. There is no obligation on the part of central government to share the cess that is collected. These are the commonalities and differences between these words. And tax is generally something which is levied on a benefit. If somebody is having a benefit on which the tax is levied, whereas duty is something which is levied in general on an existing burden. It is a burden on the burden, whereas the tax is a burden on the benefit. Tax, duty, cess, all of them are burdens for people who are paying it, because we have to pay money to the government, whatever the name we call it, tax, duty or cess. That is what we should be very clear about, this terminology, and I hope all of you have understood. If you have any doubts in relation to these words and the explanation given about these words, you may directly give me a message or even leave a message in the group, be it text message or a voice message. Ultimately it's fine, and don't hesitate to ask any questions. Your questions will be definitely addressed too, and we'll continue this discussion in another session, which will have the distinction between direct tax and indirect tax, what are the components of the income tax law in India, and most importantly some of the basic things like terms, once again, assessment year, previous year, who is an SSC, who is a person, what is India, these all variety things will